So this is our back to school social work event. The goal of our gathering today, again, is to share insights. I have a wonderful panel. We're going to build community together and hopefully just all feel prepared for that first day. And please hit the chat up right now. Share your name, where you're from, and what your role is at this moment. Are you working in elementaries, middle school? Is it K through 12, a whole district? We know as social workers, we are hailing from all different parts of the country in this meeting, which is very beautiful. But every district runs its school social work very differently. Every state does, every city does. So please keep that in mind as we are sharing our insights from all over. That's the little disclaimer that we all have different capacities and roles. So always check in with your district first, or your supervisor, whoever that may be. So these are our wonderful panelists here. Erica Navoa is here. Jasmine Lemite is going to come in a little later. We have Lillian, middle school social worker. Sandra Gonzalez, which is almost school-wide. She's going to share some macro information with us today. Linda, who's strictly in elementary. We also have elementary school social worker Edith, Jessica, which is a high school mental health provider, and Bianca, who works in elementary and a few middle schools. Also have elementary social worker Amanda Mann, middle school social worker and play therapist Ariana Vargas. We also have Joyce Hardeval here that works with pre-K through 8th. Jocelyn is a social work coach for the whole district. And so that's why I'm saying we have such a wealth of knowledge, and each is going to come in and share a piece of information, a piece of insight that they've learned throughout their years of school social work. Because we know as school social workers, we meet with families and students on top of working with staff, right, and supporting the whole school during crisis situations. We provide social emotional support for those students, and we also impact the entire school culture. It is so much to tackle. And if this is your first year and you're kind of feeling everything all at once, not sure what to expect, you are in the right place. We're going to kick us off with Edith. And you can see her handle here. Please pay attention to that because the handles are important so that you can continue to learn and grab insight from each social worker. So Edith is going to kick us off with starting about what we're all here for, what we typically go into school social work for, which are the students, and how that looks to meet with students.
I'm so excited to be here. I was looking forward to this all week, honestly. Hopefully, these tips that I'll give you guys will kind of make you feel a little bit more ready to start. So when it comes to working with students, the first thing that I need to make sure that I have in place from the beginning is a referral system. And so what I mean by referral system, you have to make sure that you have your teachers, your staff, that they know exactly how to refer students to you, whether it be by a form, whether you choose to just have them email you, whether you do a small presentation at the beginning of the year and explain, this is how you refer students to me. Again, in my case, because I work with a team, there's a referral form that I have ready for teachers to fill out. It goes to the team meets, we look over the case and we decide who it would go to. That's how it works at my school. So once you have a referral system in place, you now have a caseload. So once you have a caseload, you are able to start your work. The next thing that would come after that is assessment. You want to assess the needs of each individual student. There are a lot of assessment tools that you can use. I have an assessment tool that really helps me. It's a psychosocial assessment that I have modified to make sure that it meets the population that I work with. But there are many, many different types of psychosocial assessments. And basically, you're meeting with the student the first time, you're meeting with the parents the first time, and you're gathering as much information as possible, history, background, medical. And once you have that assessment done, you have a better idea of what are the target behaviors or the target issues that you're going to work with that student and that family. So once you've done your assessment, you want to do some treatment planning. Okay, so you will develop some goals. What are you and that student going to work on? And you want to make sure that they're measurable as well. So you want to say, okay, we're going to work on reducing some of the anxiety that the student is going through. And we are going to monitor for 6 weeks, right? And so now you have a measurable goal. Along with determining goals, you are going to also identify your interventions. I always make sure that I use evidence-based practices. And then confidentiality is a big thing too. When you are working with students, you want to make sure that you are discussing confidentiality with family, with the student, depending on their age, obviously. Those are some of the main components that I can think of, and I hope that that's helpful for all of you. And again, I'm always available, just a DM or a message, and I'm here to help. I'm here to support all of you.
Yes, thank you so much, Edith. That is a huge chunk to kind of bite off of and start working with. And we're definitely going to unpack this even more. So no worries. We're going to talk about meeting with students as a group next, because we know that that is very crucial to what we do as well.
Yeah. Hello, everyone. My name is Linda Medina Martinez, and I am a school social worker in Denver, Colorado. So the first thing that I want to talk about is setting expectations during that first group. Some people call them, ground rules, the norms, but really, letting the students know what the purpose of the group is, how their time will be spent. I made the mistake my first year of not really setting those expectations, and sometimes my students thought it was kind of like free time or playtime with Miss Linda. And so I've, have learned how to really set those expectations during that first group that we meet. During that first group, I also get to know the students. We talk about getting to know each other, and then that confidentiality piece as well. So just making sure that they know what the group is, letting them know that, you're flexible and they might have to be flexible if you can't meet at the same time or the same day of the week. Even my younger students, my kindergarteners, they know the day and the exact time that we meet. And if I don't tell them, it's going to change, or if I miss a group, they will be on me. They know. So making sure that all that is kind of set up for the groups as well. Something else that I like to share with school social workers that has worked for me is a follow-up with those students in the classroom to whatever skill or intervention you worked on that week. So for example, if I have a group on Tuesdays and it's a friendship group and, we're working on taking turns, I like to pop in into the classrooms with those students and kind of just check in and see, have they been practicing it, what their day has looked like using that skill, or if they noticed, someone else using that skill as well. It also gives me time to check in with the teacher and see how that student is doing as well. So, not only practicing that skill in that small group setting, but outside of that setting with the whole classroom, or in less structured times like recess or lunch. I think it really helps bridge, that those skills from the group setting to a bigger, academic setting, or like I said, unstructured time. I also like to follow up with my families regarding groups. So because I do work with a younger population, I'm in contact. I always have to get consent for counseling for my students. And I will, maybe every 2 weeks, check in with the family and just let them know how their student is doing. And then just offer, if they feel like the student needs a little bit of extra more support, that I can still see them individually, or do maybe some check-ins and checkouts. And lastly, I want to talk about how you can maybe get more teacher buy-in for these groups, or maybe more buy-in from your administrators. This past year, I've been adding some literacy components to my groups. So whether we're reading a book or doing some writing, sometimes we even do like the word of the day and kind of work on that vocabulary. And so I present that to teachers and my admin as well, is that, we're not just sitting around playing games, which a lot of people think that's what we do with groups, but adding kind of that literacy and reading component to it definitely helps in with the buy-in.
That is so crucial. And it segues us perfect into our next person that's going to talk about teacher buy-in. But I love those ideas. That gives us so much. Any last input, Linda?
If anyone wants to reach out to me, you can send me a direct message on Instagram. I also have 3 highlighted stories there that say social work, and you can actually see some of the various groups that I've had ideas on some activities that you can do with.
That is perfect. And that's actually how I saw Linda. She took over my page once as well as other panelists have as well, because they just share so much beautiful insight there. So thank you so much, Linda. I know I went, as soon as you hit teacher buy-in, I'm like taking notes. It's so important. That's one of our big barriers. And Amanda is going to take us into even more strategies and tips on how to handle that.
Hi, I'm Amanda Mann. I'm a school social worker just outside of St. Paul, Minnesota. So one of the very first things that I learned was to introduce myself. As much as I really do not like public speaking, it was my goal to get up and introduce myself in front of the staff and talk about what I do, and talk about myself a little bit, because building those connections with staff is important outside of what we do. Just connections as humans, and then sharing kind of what we do and what we can do to help the students in their classrooms. So I usually do that during our first staff meeting of the school year during workshop week. My first year, I took time during workshop week to go around and meet as many staff members as possible and kind of take time getting to know them and talk about kind of the students that I already knew were maybe kids that I was going to be checking in with at the beginning of the year, kids that they maybe were concerned about, had heard things about. And then from then, after my second year and on, I have taken time every year to make connections with those new teachers. And then throughout the year, I also spend quite a bit of time working on relationship building and connecting with teachers, but also kind of for that purpose of building that working relationship with them, that we're on the team for the student. So it might look to other people like we're just sitting and chatting, but for me, it really is, I have to build that connection with the teacher so that the teacher sees me as a partner and not someone who just gets the kid out of the classroom for 20 minutes once a week and brings them back in. I really am someone who can help build skills with the student and help move them forward. My goal is always to make sure that the staff don't see me as someone who sits in my office and does groups and meets with kids and plays games with them all day long. I want them to know what I'm doing with kids. So seeing me out and about in the school as much as possible doing my job, to the extent that they can see me doing my job, is really important to me. And one other tip that I thought of while I was just thinking about kind of getting to know all of the staff, I work in a pretty big building. We have about 6 to 7 sections in every grade level. And one of the big things when I got started was not knowing anybody's names, or like trying to figure out people's names and like learn them and remember them. And someone told me to have the school website up all day long on my computer and like have the grade levels. And in an elementary school, we have all the grade levels and the teachers' pictures are right there. And you can like see someone in the hallway and go back to your office and look at the pictures if your websites are set up that way, and try to remember the names that way. So it was just a helpful tip for me because it is very helpful to know people's names.
That is such a great hack. I'm going to do that, especially because sometimes we start at a different school. It's like, how am I going to learn everybody all over again? So thank you so much for that, Amanda. That was so crucial and important.